Sick. Alright, that level... Okay, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. It is not perfect by any means. Not a lot of levels are, except for Electric Forest. I fucking love you. But this level does have a lot of good to it. The first 50% is a bit lower quality than the last 50%, I'd say. It's something that you can look past once you've gotten a lot more consistent at it and can beat it at least like 30% of the time or so. But like when first learning the first 50%, it can be kind of annoying. I'm going to at some point cut to talking about each part individually, but for now I'm going to talk about the difficulty of the level. So I'd say it is just an extreme demon, just barely. The only reason it's not insane is because some of the timings towards like the first 50% are a bit odd, a bit difficult to learn, and the level's length. It's about 2 minutes long, which is, you know, not the longest thing in the world, but it's longer than your standard long minute 20-second level. So yeah, for that reason, I'm going to say it is an extreme demon. And I'm going to like it. That was pretty cool. I'd imagine I am on the leaderboards. Good for me. People need to play this level more. That's all that means. It's decently old, I believe, like 2019 or so. Yeah, that's about where that idea is. Like late-ish 2019, maybe early 2020. I'm not so sure, around there. And yeah, for that time period especially, this is pretty solid. A lot of levels back then were decently buggy, I'd say. Obviously not all of them. Less so than like 2017, 2018. The community was starting to heal itself from the early 2.1 shithole. But still, not a lot of levels were spectacular, and while this level obviously isn't spectacular, it is pretty good. So now I'm going to cut to me talking about each individual part. The level starts out with this slow-paced timing part. A lot of the level, especially the first half, has like slow timing gameplay throughout the most of it, with some like flow elements put into it. This first part, some of the timings are a little bit annoying, especially the first 4 clicks. They're very learnable and they get consistent though, so it's not too much of a problem. The second half of the first part is really easy, so there's not really much to comment on. The decoration, it's not offensive, but it's not that great. It's pretty much just your standard 2018-2019 Extreme Demon part. The next part is it's pretty short. It has a short ship and then a wave. So this part looks a bit better than the previous part. The wave section is pretty annoying because what they do is they have all of the platforms move, which is normally okay for every other game mode, but for wave it's fucking terrible because it's impossible to tell if you're if you're not in the exact middle of in between the structures, they'll move in on you and you die, and it's barely your fault, which is bullshit. It's learnable again, but it's still it could have been better. Next is kind of an ass ship transition. I know I'm shitting on this level a lot. Like I said, the first half of the level is a lot worse than the second half. There's this not amazing ship transition. After this long ass black screen, my guess is it has something to do with merging the parts. I don't know, the person from before didn't finish the last click of his part. The person after started his part somewhere else, I don't know, and now there's this empty space, and instead of making gameplay for it, there's zYuko just kind of put a black screen. Don't know how I feel about that. There's maybe a heavy ask for a 2019 level, but it would have probably been better to have a cutscene or something there if you really didn't want to have gameplay. It didn't have to be anything insane, just something other than nothing. And the transition out of that isn't amazing, but it's consistent. You just hold once, and the ship part is extremely lenient. It's medium demon gameplay, so the bad transition doesn't really matter because you can barely die to that part anyway. The next part, when I was first playing it, it felt like the worst part of the level. Now I'm not so sure because, like every part, it gets consistent. And it probably still is the worst part, but not by as much as I had initially thought. The reason I didn't like this part is because it has, first, invisible speed changes. Second, it has a bunch of odd hitboxes, like that second green orb. Sometimes you'll hit that and you'll just die to nothing. I think it's because the ground spikes, some of the parts are fixed slightly. I'll put a screenshot on screen. Not amazing, especially for a level as easy as this, where it doesn't have to be that difficult enough to warrant fixed hitboxes and whatnot. If you actually do the part though, it's really satisfying though. The decoration, it's kind of okay. The block design looks alright. It just looks a bit empty for the blocks that are completely black. Yeah. The next part, I'm mostly okay with. My only issue is that for some reason the portals are on 20% opacity. The portals, I don't know why creators do this sometimes, where they have either, this isn't a problem nowadays, but in around when this level came out, a lot of creators would just make either weird custom portals or just make the opacity nothing, or use a pulse trigger to make all the portals black. And it's what RobTop spent probably a long time designing the sprites for every individual type of portal, and they all, the size change portals look a bit weird, but they all look good. They can fit in most levels, with maybe a bit of stylization, some glow or something. Metamorphosis does this cool thing where they put a checkpoint in there, and it looks cool, it fits the style now. It's not super much of an ask to just make the portals fit in with the style instead of just hiding them. I know I'm using modern standards on a level that's 5 years old, but still, I feel like it's still a pretty valid critique. Other than that part was pretty good though. The next part, it plays alright. It's pretty easy. You don't really die to it, so if there's some bug, I just didn't die to it. But it looks kind of odd. I don't know what they were going for there. My guess is, since the song is obviously a Terraria Calamity mod song, and the boss that the song is attributed to, you fight in the Brimstone Crags, which is a biome in Hell. So they decided, I'm going to try to recreate Hell from Terraria with the gray silt blocks. And Hell in Terraria, the background looks really cool. The silt blocks, they look kind of shit. I'm used to them. I don't notice, but if you really think about it, it's just, it's not the greatest texture in that game, especially compared to the 1.4 stuff. The silt blocks specifically in Terraria look kind of weird, so the silt blocks in this level that are a recreation of the silt blocks in Terraria look kind of weird. The next part is a little hard to learn, mostly that duel towards the end of it. But once you do, it's really consistent and really fun. Again, that goes for a lot of the parts in this level. This part also looks pretty good, nothing spectacular again, but I have no problems with it. It's pleasant enough on my eyes. Now, the next part is easily the best part of the level. It clears everything by a lot. It looks really good. A bit monochrome, but that's it. And there's some weird layering with the 3D, but we don't talk about that. But the gameplay, it's so satisfying. It's the fast-paced flow gameplay that I really like. And the click pattern is really fun. It's the best click pattern in this level relative to the song and whatnot. It's decent. It's difficult enough, but it's consistent. Where I died there once from 0, but it was never a snooze fest or anything. The next part is gameplay-wise, it's similar as in its fast pace. It's a lot more buffer gameplay, where literally the only clip that isn't really a buffer is that first pink orb. That the part's not difficult because of that, which is fine. Next is the part the level slows down a bit again, and this part I like less a bit, but it's still not. That doesn't mean it's not good. There's 2 UFO clicks that are kind of annoying. UFO is just an annoying game mode in general, so the UFO game mode being annoying, what a surprise. Yeah, those would kill me sometimes, and it would be weird. Later in the part, there are 3 blue orbs. They're a bit inconsistent. They're a bit harder than the rest of the level. I know I've been saying this level's really consistent, but those 3 blue orbs are just slightly more difficult than everything else. It's not too bad, though. Then you get to, like, kind of where the level starts to end, kind of. It's not the last part, but, like, this is where the nerves really kick in. Where you have... it's pretty interesting. What the level does is has the like a really similar part to the very first part of the level. It has the same decoration, just some different gameplay. I like the gameplay in this part. I like a bit better than the first part. It's a bit more consistent. There's one timing right before the ship that is like pretty tight, but other than that, the part's pretty solid. Next is this part with a bunch of really flowy moving platforms. It complements the song pretty well. You can't complain about that. It's pretty easy, but it's one of those parts that you have to learn. Like which platforms you have to hold on, which ones you don't. And other than that, that's pretty much the level. That's overall, I'd say it's pretty good. Probably a solid 72 out of 100. I'd say. Yeah. And the last thing I want to point out before ending the video is if I go back to Geometry Dash, go to zYuko's account. This is his first level, which, I mean, yeah, pretty solid for a first level. But if we go through here, there's Brimtanic Paradise, then immediately lies you in Aegis, then next is Anahita. There is a pretty solid ID difference between them. Like, this is in the 7 millions, 65 millions, and then 60 million. So there's a solid 5 million levels in between them. But, like, you can tell, like, each level is drastically improved upon from the last. This level, as I've said, is decently good, kind of average-ish, but fun, you know. You've watched an entire video on that level, you know how I feel about it. And this level is really awesome. It was my hardest for a long time. Huge step up, really fun gameplay, really satisfying. Then Anahita is, like, nearly perfect. So, zYuko went from, like, kind of mid to, like, extremely good within 3 levels. I know they're all mega collabs, but they're still hosting them. So, I mean, this really goes out to the entire team working behind these levels. Awesome job. Don't want to give all the credit to zYuko, and I know for a fact that these are all mega collabs. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna leave it off on. Yeah, goodbye.